I'm going to get straight into it and say, do not buy the iPhone 14. Yes, it's easy to get sucked into the marketing of what is a new iPhone and how and why you should get it. But honestly, you should not be looking at the iPhone 14. And the main reason is because of the iPhone 13 Pro. And so long as you have access to purchasing it from official resellers and from your carrier network, that should be the first choice before considering the iPhone 14. 1 year later, and the truth couldn't be more obvious than to get the iPhone 13 Pro. And I say this because of the design, size, and build quality. Yes, they both have the same 6.1-inch display size and footprint, but the materials, finish, and overall build are much better on the 13 Pro, with the nice matte finish at the back and the use of stainless steel for the frame. When you are effectively spending what is the same money on both phones, then for sure the iPhone 13 Pro's overall fit and finish is what you should be going for. And 1 year later, it still feels just as premium as ever before. Another reason is the display. Yes, they may have the same physical size as 6.1 inches with the notch design for the Face ID housing and the same resolution at 2531 by 1170, but the iPhone 13 Pro has overall a brighter display and most importantly, access to that smooth 120Hz ProMotion adaptive refresh rate display. Now look, some may see it as okay for the iPhone 14 to have a standard 60Hz display, but at the price of £849, in 2022, there should be no less than a 90Hz display in the iPhone 14. Now look, telling between a 1080p and a high resolution 1440p display on a smartphone relative to the size of the display may be more difficult, and honestly, the same could be said for 60Hz to a 120Hz display. But I feel you have a better chance of telling between a refresh rate than resolution, and at this price point, the iPhone 13 Pro has the better overall display experience. Performance and specs are another reason why the iPhone 14 just doesn't make sense next to the 13 Pro. They are using the same 5-core GPU variant of the A15 Bionic chip with 6GB of RAM and 128GB of internal storage for the base models. The only saving grace the iPhone 14 potentially has here is that, again, we do have to wait to see in real world how that's going to fare. Apple are claiming to have improved the cooling and thermal performance of the A15 on the iPhone 14 and 14 Plus, meaning less performance throttling, allowing for max performance for longer periods. Apart from that, when you look beyond how Apple marketed the performance of the iPhone 14 to be new, just know it's exactly the same internals as the iPhone 13 Pro, which has held up brilliantly. And hey, if you're enjoying this long-term review so far, then make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you're part of Team TLS, the Tech Lover Squad, so you don't miss any future videos on the channel. That out of the way, let's get back into the review. The camera is probably one of the biggest reasons why you should avoid the iPhone 14 and choose the 13 Pro. Apple marketed the iPhone 14's main camera to be new and improved. And spoiler alert, it is the same main sensor found on the iPhone 13 Pro at 12 megapixels with an f1.5 aperture and sensor shift OIS with stabilizing the main camera. What's even better is that you get a proper triple camera system on the iPhone 13 Pro with a 12 megapixel 3x optical zoom, a LiDAR sensor for better autofocusing at low light, access to Apple's ProRAW photo taking capability, and also ProRes video recording. Now, the only thing I can give a win to the iPhone 14 is that it does have a new selfie camera with autofocus and a brighter lens, which should help with photos and videos. And you also do have access to the new video portrait mode at 4K 30 frames a second and 24 frames a second, plus the new action mode, which shoots amazing video stabilization, almost like an action camera at 2.8K up to 60 frames a second. That is actually very impressive for the iPhone 14. But for everything else, especially having the extra zoom lens, you would and it better to stick with the iPhone 13 Pro. Guess what? If you want the latest and greatest phone software from Apple, then you can get it right here with the iPhone 13 Pro because iOS 16 is now official. Apple is still the gold standard when it comes to timely OS version updates over multiple years, and iOS 16 is no different for the iPhone 13 Pro, with a fresh take on the lock screen with wallpapers and widgets, the ability to edit and unsend messages, better management and reachability for notifications on the lock screen, and of course, many more. Or to say that you do not need to get the iPhone 14 if you want the latest and greatest software experience from Apple. Now, of course, when just looking at the iPhone 13 Pro on a standalone, all the normal limitations of iOS are still here, with the lack of true multitasking and the ability to have the freedom to place your apps where you would like on the home screen. But regardless, it is still the smoothest phone OS you can get, with subjectively some of the best native ecosystem features like iMessage and FaceTime, alongside having the fastest and longest term software support. I'm almost confident enough to say that the battery life for both the iPhone 14 and 13 Pro will even out to be the same. That's to say that the battery life on the 13 Pro has been the best I've experienced from any phone at this size and form factor, consistently pushing 7 hours of screen on time and sometimes as much as 8 hours. Now, the iPhone 14 might improve slightly on the battery life due to the fact that it is limited to a 60Hz display and apparently does have a slightly bigger battery. But regardless, since the iPhone 13 Pro is using an LTPO display that can refresh as low as 10Hz, backed with the same efficient A15 chip, I think the battery life of the 13 Pro should hold up just fine, and that's something that's been the case 1 year later. I just want to round things up and say why I'm not recommending the iPhone 14 at this time. Is it going to actually be a bad phone? No. That's not going to be the case at all, because at this stage, Apple do know how to make a good smartphone with a good user experience. But for the price, there is just too much missing compared to the iPhone 13 Pro. And a year later, the iPhone 13 Pro is the phone I've enjoyed the most on an iPhone for the year and can recommend it the most now, especially with the price drops coming to places like official resellers and your carrier networks. The iPhone 13 Pro is the way to go instead of the iPhone 14. What's your thoughts on this? Let me know in the comment section below. That's it for me, Ben from Lover of Tech. If you enjoy videos like this, you know exactly what to do. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you're part of Team TLS, the Tech Level Squad, so you don't miss any future videos on the channel. I hope you're all safe during this time. I will catch you in the next one. Peace.